All right. Well, I will be the first one to say, everybody, I am so proud to announce that we are officially starting our second podcast now, the C&C, Crime and Conspiracy. You know me, I'm Max, and I got Brandon with me over here. Brandon.
What's going on, Max? Yeah, we're debuting a new thing with a lot of there's bells and whistles involved in what's going on today. So,
dude, we have all the bells and whistles today, honestly. We got our buddy Chappell over here in the studio recording us today, and big shout out to Chappell who put together all of this, which is visuals, microphones, everything under the sun, right? Yeah.
We're looking pretty lit. We're putting, it's very bright in here. It's very nice.
It's legitimately lit in here. I feel like
nice.
It's not 7 o'clock at night right now.
But this is going to be a fun thing. So I feel like this whole concept kind of blends and works itself into basically the weekly show.
Absolutely.
And an extension of the stuff that we talk about on the weekly show.
Yeah, we're like I said earlier, it's going to be called Crime and Conspiracy. This is going to be our first episode, and each week we're going to switch either talking about one true crime or one conspiracy piece. I'll be bringing the true crime. Brandon will be bringing the conspiracy. So we're going to get started this week with true crime, and then next week, unfortunately, we won't have this great setup next week because we won't be together. We're trying to really utilize our time together over, this week, and,
I mean, we've chunked out quite a bit. We did a stream. We did a podcast.
And now we're here.
And now we're doing podcast part
and
2.
Rumor is they're going to force me to do more stuff tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to try.
Yeah.
We're going to try. We'll see what happens.
The more stuff they force me to do, the more content we make this weekend, right?
And, I mean, this in-person stuff is, we got to get the most out of it.
Here's to peer pressure.
Oh, Chappell coming in hot. So, for
Very
Crime
true.
and Conspiracy, welcome everyone. This is episode 1, and we're going to be talking about Natalia Grace.
That's right, we are. Natalia Grace, that's our homegirl. We've been catching up on the story this week. I've full disclosure, completed the documentary series on HBO before I got here.
Yeah, and then we rewatched almost the entire second season together before we got started.
We are caught up on Natalia Grace's side of things.
And I think the first season came out over a year ago, and you had already seen it, but I've watched the whole thing in the last 2 weeks, I feel like 8 hours, 10 hours worth.
Yeah, the first time I heard about this ever was 4 years ago when it first came out.
Yeah, when it was a hot news item, right?
Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon. And I heard them talk about it, and I was like, that's crazy. And I only heard essentially what would be the parent side.
Yeah, which is the side that everybody
was hearing at the beginning and got repeated the most and probably got the most airtime, I would say.
And for those of you who don't know, Natalia Grace was a 6-year-old girl who was adopted, and she had a severe case of dwarfism. She actually was they believe somewhere between 6 to 8 years old, but the family quickly started saying that they believed her to be at least over the age of 18 at the beginning, right? And they said that she was essentially lying about being a 6-year-old kid.
Yeah, oh yeah, big time.
And I think everyone kind of heard about the story at the time because it was a big fucking news story that some girl with dwarfism was literally lying about her age by 12, 13 years. And I remember it was in every magazine. There was pictures of her and people were arguing does she look like she's 8? Does she look like she's 20? And no one can have a real answer to that.
Yeah, and I could be wrong, but I think when Joe Rogan brought it up on the podcast, he was talking about how it was eerily similar to that movie, The Orphan. Which actually kind of ties in.
Yeah, dude. Oh my God, I forgot all about that fucking movie.
Which kind of ties into the whole thing, right? Because some people would say that was actually part of inspiration for how they paint the narrative in this whole story. It was taken as an inspiration from that movie.
They saw The Orphan and they're like, here's how we get rid of this girl.
So it's very meta. You never know.
So essentially, we'll get started in April of 2010, okay? Because that's kind of where the whole season 1 kind of kicks off,
all right?
And that's where we have a couple here named Michael and Christine Barnett, and they adopted this 6-year-old girl named Natalia Grace. And where was she from? Remind me.
She was from Ukraine.
She was from the Ukraine. Right?
Ukraine.
I set you up there, but I had to.
Is this part of the conspiracy part? Is this the conspiracy part where you go into where's the funding coming from?
That's the second season, right? What the fuck is going on at those Ukrainian adoption agencies, you know?
Yeah, who's funding them? Is it BlackRock? Is BlackRock involved in getting Natalia Grace into the States, ladies and gentlemen? Let me know.
So they adopted her in 2010, and what her paperwork said in 2010 was that she was 6 years old. Okay?
Sure.
And we know she has severe dwarfism, so you see it in everything. She can't walk right? Her feet, it said in the documentary that she needed like 10 surgeries just to be able to walk how she does now.
Yeah, and she clearly needs assistance now. When
Yeah,
you
like
watch it.
there's no way that she could just be by herself.
I mean, she's clearly gotten into a rhythm with
but
getting
even
around,
in the
but-
rhythm, she has a walker.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
like
I
she's
know.
got that
And a
like walk,
chair.
like the tennis ball walker that
Yeah.
like your grandma would use in like the 90s.
As she should.
She rocks that throughout the whole second half of the documentary.
Yeah.
But it wasn't long, right? Because they adopted her in 2010, and by 2012, the Barnetts claimed that she was actually like a psyop sociopath that was not 8 years old at the time, because now it's 2012. They were thinking she was like, they were saying she was 20 years old at the least, right?
Yeah, I think it was 22, right? Or
Yeah.
were they
Well,
saying?
that's when they aged her too, right?
Okay.
That's like when they finally came to a consensus. But
I
I
see.
think in the beginning they were like, they just came up with this idea that she had to be over 18,
Right. Well, she needed to be legally could be an adult
Yeah.
in some capacity. Right.
which makes like no sense at all. Like, because
It's
you see the
concerning.
pictures and you almost start to believe they're crap because they're like Michael, and especially Michael. Like, you don't hear from Christine throughout this whole thing, right?
She's she's the only smart one.
I
in the
would
whole
kill to
group.
hear from her. I would kill to hear from her. But Michael is, anyone who's seen it, he's a complete fucking nut job, right? Like one of the most wild people you've ever seen.
I'd call him a thespian. He's quite a thespian.
He thinks he
He's
is.
born
Dude. He
for
would be
the
proud of
stage.
that.
Yeah,
he
he's-
would be proud of that.
He wants to be. That's how he wants. That's how he presents. He's
Yeah.
a theater kid.
Did he admit to being a theater kid? Because like
You don't need
he's
to.
definitely a theater
I'm
kid.
assigning him the
I'm signing him the role
He's
of you were
theater
a
kid.
fucking theater kid.
yeah,
Okay.
100%.
I'll fucking take that. So, in 2012, they started a petition to change her birth year, right? And what we hear is they take it to the Supreme Court of their state, and they just grant it based on word of mouth, is what the documentary tells you, right? Like Michael and Christine said, this dentist said she was this age, this doctor said that she was this age, and they just took it.
Yeah, I think eventually they kind of like swindled the family doctor, right? That they like knew well. And
Well, when in the second season, it like blows the top off of all this because they talk to that dentist and that doctor, and they both say like, "Yeah, I have no idea where she would have gotten that idea from
Yeah.
because I still have those records, and it says nowhere on here that she would be an adult."
I mean, it's really. I mean, yeah. As we go through it, we'll be able to clarify. But here's the thing: you watch the show. If you even watch the show for a minute, you can see the difference between Natalia Grace now, say, versus Natalia Grace in what? Or where are we already? 2012 or 2013?
Dude.
Like,
So like in 2012, when you see her in
huge
season 1.
difference.
It's like you didn't know what she was going to look like later, so you didn't know if that was her aged. But now when you see her 12 years later, right, 2024 in the
Yeah.
documentary, she is literally a teenager now. And you're like, oh, shit, like she did mature more. She wouldn't have, if she was going from 20 to 40, she wouldn't look like that.
That's
You know
100%.
yeah.
And it's hard to judge with somebody who has a developmental thing, right? Like
Absolutely. Like
but
dwarfism, we don't know how to judge.
I'm just saying, as I call it, as I see it, like when I look at her in the Barnett house, she looks like a child.
Yeah.
She looks like a child.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know. Might just be me. You watch for yourself.
So in 2012 as well, while they're trying to collect proof that she's an adult, right? The accusations are that the mom, Christine, loses her goddamn mind and starts essentially torturing Natalia so that she'll tell her that she's an adult.
Right.
And it talks about how she like beat her with a belt, and there was a time where it was nasty, dude. Like, could you imagine being like 8 years old and just getting like punched down or like made to stand on a wall, and then like that whole thing with the pepper spray too, and you start to think like this is a 35-year-old schizophrenic woman attacking an 8-year-old child with dwarfism.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
like at the end of the day,
based on what you hear about her, like throughout the documentary, it actually starts to make sense that she would do something like that. Like she's like a master manipulator. Everything she puts her whole family through is insane.
and that's the other thing too. The other thing that we've barely even touched on yet is the idea that they had 3 other sons.
Yeah, and they're thankfully not in the documentary because when the one son comes in the documentary, he has a hot mic moment where he basically makes them look like the worst pieces of shit you've ever seen in your life.
Dude, we'll get there for sure.
Forget about it.
That's
I don't want to spoil too
topic.
much.
Yeah, but I mean, they had 3 kids.
Yeah.
And the kid who we end up catching up with, who now lives with Michael, which like, how the fuck do you live with Michael? Like, I see Michael for 5 minutes and I have to like fast forward.
He busts into every room like the Kool-Aid Man, and it's
literally
like insane.
Imagine
to
that
watch
being
him.
your dad and him coming in with like all those theatrics all the fucking time, dude.
It's nuts, dude.
Hi, like kids, your mom just beat up Natalia. Like,
It's just,
come
and
on,
it's like,
dude.
does he bring that energy when there's a crisis? Is the question. Like,
yes, you know he cries and he like throws his arms up and like I guarantee it, just like he did when he cried in the fucking dock.
True. I feel like that was one of the most real moments.
Right in
was
front
when
of
he-
his fucking popcorn machine on his 2-seater couch with his shitty
It's a sad
Banana
sight.
Republic sweatshirt on.
It's a sad sight. It's not nice. You don't like
No.
watching him do anything because it's honestly ugly. Because there's so many moments where they catch him. He shouldn't be on the documentary 17 times.
Dude, they couldn't stop putting him in. It's like from the minute they first recorded him, they're like, we have to have him be as much of this documentary as possible because he's literally insane.
But he's so nuts that he's just like, he puts himself under the whole time. The whole time. He's putting himself under over the course of, 4 years?
And he's such an idiot that he can't even remember what he said last year.
No,
like,
not
all
even
of
close.
his
He can't
interviews
remember what he said in his
contradict each
fucking
other.
deposition. He can't
know.
remember what he said in his deposition.
Which you'd
That's
think
what
you'd
you
have that
need
memorized.
to remember.
Yeah.
You need to remember that.
That needs to always be your answer to everything.
I'm just, look, you got to get your story straight. That's your story, bro.
Yeah.
You got to know.
So they started absolutely just harassing this girl, and that's when they finally got her re-aged, right? And
Yeah.
like we said earlier, they go to the Supreme Court. I have no idea how you need no paperwork in 2003. Like, this isn't 1954, dude. Like, this was 2003.
She's got them Ukrainian visa papers, dude.
Yeah,
They're
dude,
like, whatever.
They're like,
I
whatever.
don't
This
know.
is a piece of fucking parchment paper.
That probably
and it
happens
crinkles.
a lot just to the best of people, you know? Like, even if it's not, we're talking 20 years, a couple years, this, that, people might not know their real age, you know? A lot of these people. It's kinda weird.
Especially in those, like, you know, you worry about, like, the birth certificates from, like, war-torn European countries.
Whoa,
You know?
whoa. Are we talking about birth certificates now, dude?
Dude,
Relax, dude.
Hey.
Whoa, dude.
Hey.
I didn't know you were a truther. I didn't know you were trying to expose Sleep Token like that, dude.
Listen, I'm going to dock Sleep Token tomorrow.
They're
on
going to
Instagram.
get dropped, dude.
But anyways, they got the church. Oh my god, the church, the courts to.
They did
got the
get,
churches.
they got the churches of Ukraine rebuilt.
They got the courts in their state to change her birth age from 8 to 22 years old, which like
That's
fat fucking
nuts.
jump.
Yeah. Who was there at work that day where everybody looked at that and went, that makes sense for sure.
And the minute that they're able to re-age her, they throw her in a fucking apartment, right? They throw her in that 1-story strip mall looking apartment in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where she belongs. Wait, she was in the first story first, right? Like
Yeah,
she was in a nice apartment that would have made sense for an 8-year-old child being
I don't
re-aged
think
to the
any apartment
22.
is right for an 8-year-old child by themselves.
I'm saying it's at this point, an 8-year-old child being re-aged to 22, and then she
Yeah.
be
It
22
was a
now
1-story
legally.
flat.
Legally, she's 22.
Yep.
That's crazy, dude. I don't even know what the fuck. Like,
Like-
how many people had to see that in a process in order for that to go through? It
Yeah,
can't
like,
just be one guy.
It's not just one guy being like, "Yep,
Or
that all
lady.
sounds legit." Like, sign off.
It could, if it was a guy, it might just be one guy where he was like, "Yeah, dude, that's fine. Send it."
I'm really tired. It's
I
2003. It's post 9/11, dude. Everyone's exhausted.
God, dude, this Ukrainian I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, dude. No one in 2003 knew what Ukraine was.
Yeah,
they were
dude.
like, "Wait, that's."
We're
Asia,
sending.
right?
I'm sending.
She doesn't look Asian.
Holy shit, dude. True, she doesn't.
She doesn't look Asian at all. What the hell is she?
It is Eurasia, technically.
You're Asian.
You're Asian,
They're Eurasian.
dude. But Natalia Grace is completely looked over and passed over in the system here in this scenario.
And I don't understand how this happens because just like we said earlier, all these doctors, all these dentists came back and they're like, that's not what my paperwork says at all.
From what I can tell, there's physical evidence saying that she's within the ages of like 6 to 8 to 10.
Yeah.
She's not 20.
And when she lives in this apartment, now that she's 22, right? You see some of the worst videos ever that Michael and Christine made, like when they visited her, right? Like the only thing I'm thinking is it's 2003, right? There's no smartphone. There's no anything like, what did you do? Bring a fucking like VHS camcorder in there to like show you torturing this girl? Because like they would yell at her for like, how'd you get this food? How'd you do this? It's like, bitch, I don't know. I'm 22.
I think that
they knew she was 8, dude.
I think at times they would, well, they definitely knew she was younger than 20.
Younger than 22 for sure.
I can understand maybe being skeptical about the paperwork or whatever, but like you can't place it at an adult. And they build a good case on the narrative that they knew that they needed to re-age her not just to 18 but to 22. Yeah. Wasn't it because of like a dependence or something like that?
Well, the whole thing was like once they're 22, when you're 18, you're legally an adult, but then you you're no longer a dependent to your parent at 22.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, which made everyone feel like they did it so that they would
makes sense.
But what they realize is they're fucking idiots because there's not. If someone's disabled and they're your kid, they never stop becoming your dependent.
Sure.
Regardless. But they did not realize that at all.
Okay.
There was zero idea of that. So what happened was they threw her in this apartment and they're like, she's 22. It's fine. Like, we're going to live our fucking lives. And what happened during that time is one of their kids became incredibly famous because he was like an autistic savant. You know, when it came to like schoolwork.
He was like one of those kids in Asteroid City.
Exactly. The kid from Asteroid City. Yeah. Who was like being sheltered around from competition.
You get brought out to Area 51 to work out because you've discovered some type of technology.
But what's crazy is when they showed that part, I remember the 60 Minutes about their oldest son, about how he was like already in college.
You said that you had seen that.
Yeah, he was already in college and he was like 14 taking like, junior level college courses and shit.
That's in the middle of like that college rush and everybody's going. And,
right after 9/11. I hate to keep saying it, but like everyone went to college right after 9/11. It seemed like a giant push on education.
It was almost like mandatory, right? Like if you were going to do something after school that wasn't trade related, you had to go to college.
There was no way. If you wanted to make anything with money outside of a trade, you had to go to college.
Yeah, that was just viewed as normal.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like a little bit more like, holy crap, that's expensive.
And I'm gonna be real, the two youngest sons, they really give them like no airplay besides saying that like the mom allowed them to beat up Natalia or forced them to beat up Natalia.
And they're still
allegedly
they're still up with her, and that's like a big
terrifying
thing. Yeah, and that's like a big thing because they're still being probably actively manipulated by her if they haven't completely cut ties. And if they haven't completely cut ties, why haven't they reached back out to his dad and been like, yo, what's going on? So I just feel bad. I do feel bad for them. And I do feel bad for them because they were children.
Everyone in this point is under 12.
Yeah.
There's like Natalia's 6.
That's why I say everybody in that house was a victim of her for sure in a lot of ways. But like Natalia being like disabled and adopted makes it
so much
much worse. Yeah. Even if she lied about her age.
But also, like, we don't know what weird stuff she was doing to her own kids before Natalia got there that they'll never admit to either.
We don't
know if this just started with Natalia.
Yeah, who knows? Their boys probably had a little fight club before going.
You don't know. She might have been like drinking wine and watching them fight.
Yeah.
Like smoking Marlboro Lights and just watching these kids WWE the shit out of each other.
You think she was trying to get them dates like she was trying to get
there is a part in
with
this
the homies
where when she's re-aged at 22, there's an accusation that Christine tries to hook up Natalia with like a 40-year-old local little person.
What is his deal again? Because he's
like important in the community, but I don't know why, except for being in a wheelchair and being kind of cute.
He does something.
He's kind of like a little
celebrity, traveled around. I remember.
He was
talking about getting poontang. That's right. Yeah, he was like getting
he played
poontang.
like fiddle or some shit.
He was walking around getting poontang for sure, like real like big poontang.
Yep. And so
good for him. Also, that's crazy, dude. He's going absolutely crazy. That guy.
all this happens while she's living in that first apartment, right? The kid goes off and does all these things,
Right.
and they're traveling. She writes a book about it. Christine writes a book about that.
Yeah, and she was selling it for like, what did she sell that for? Like millions of dollars,
Millions and
or
millions of
something?
dollars.
Like,
Dude, it made. There was a movie deal
she
that
got
never
an
went through.
advance for like 600,000 or
Yes,
something, right?
yes.
Or I'm probably misremembering.
And she
the
always
number.
wrote about how like this is my money, and then the son who it's written about admitted he got no money from the books about him.
That were written about him.
Yeah,
That used his. I think they used his face on the cover.
they did. It's like him like with like a bunch of like math equations and
God
shit behind him with a
damn, dude.
backwards hat on. It sucks.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
And
you
people
know?
still buy that book. I looked on Amazon. You can buy it right now for the
I'm
publisher.
sure that they.
Which means Christine still makes money, but he doesn't make a fucking dime.
Yeah.
And he, I don't know. We can't speak to the other two kids, but I will say seems like he is mentally going through it from what he dealt with in his childhood. Their oldest
For
son.
sure, dude. Like,
Oh my
he's
God.
broken. He's broken. He is a man past his prime. He's not going to be able to get up and fucking be a genius anymore. He's
No.
done.
And like
he
his
had
mom ruined
He
that.
had the capability to do it. Like he
Yep.
had the capability. He was clearly smarter than everybody else in his age group, and he was fucking, you know.
Imagine peaking at 15. Like literally, we talk about peaking in like high school, but like imagine peaking pre-high school.
Yeah, but he
Like
was
13.
If you looked in that shot, even in the background of that shot where they're interviewing him, he has like this whiteboard that's got like equations, and he's like working
he's
on
like still
stuff,
trying to
and
figure
he's
shit out. Like his brain's moving, but like he's down there in that basement of
it's
Michael.
just it's so depressing.
It's so depressing.
Because like he was probably like the oldest, right? Was
He was the
oldest son?
oldest,
So
yep.
he was involved and knew probably better than the younger sons that something wrong
that it
was
wasn't
happening.
right. That it wasn't right to
Clearly,
do that to Natalia.
he was
Yeah.
still young enough that he felt powerless in the situation, couldn't do anything about it, and now is letting it torment him. And is
Yes.
also terrified now that he's an adult that he doesn't want to be like prosecuted for
Never.
assault and fucking abuse and shit.
that's like the whole part that okay, now we can kind of get back to it, right? Because they interview
God,
Michael
that is so fucked up.
in his house a ton, and he's throwing on like a parade act, right? And then they interview the son like separately in Michael's basement because like it's like a semi-finished basement room that it seems he lives in.
Right.
Yeah. And then they kind of come together for this like real awkward side hug next to the popcorn machine. You remember that?
I do.
Yeah, where it's like, what the fuck? And then they're standing up there at the top of the stairs. Ironically, they're at the top of the stairs. And the son forgets to turn off his like lapel mic, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
from the interviews downstairs. And he just admits to his dad, he's like, we're not supposed to talk about the time that we all pushed Natalia down the stairs, right?
Yeah, that's probably. I mean, any hot mic moment in a documentary is literally what they're looking for. It's kind
Yeah,
of
it's
like
like the greatest thing ever.
golden goose moment of
Everyone's
every
dick gets hard.
documentary
Yeah.
because you're revealing new information. I mean, you're breaking news at that point. So it's like, I get it. That is cool. A lot of people will take issue with it though because it's like, is it ethical? Is it right to broadcast it if it was meant to be in confidence? I don't care because
I
you're
don't
already
care
putting
because
yourself
you're
out
admitting
there.
some terrible shit, and you also chose to be a part of this documentary.
It's on you as the person to know that you're being recorded. You've been aware that you're being recorded. You've consented and you've
Yep.
signed paperwork to say you're cool with being recorded.
and now you know you're being recorded.
And now you're being recorded.
Yep.
And we don't sign paperwork. You know what I mean? I can understand there being, who knows? But like, if you're in that professional scenario, this is being produced by HBO or whatever. It's like
If I'm getting up and I'm going to talk
you
about
have
things
to
we're not
know-
going to talk about,
everything you're going to say while they're in your house,
Yep.
let alone
yep.
what you got to get your shit together.
But if I knew that I was going to go upstairs and talk to you about something that we weren't going to talk about on there,
yeah.
I would make sure every single mic wasn't even off, was not on me anymore.
Right. But
Like-
their sloppiness in that moment, I think, actually says a lot about Christine and her like very clean, very sterile way of handling things.
You think like without her, they're not able to like do the little
I
things
think
that she
they're-
always was like, turn that off,
It's
do
like,
this,
well, I
like,
think it's just credence to the fact they are kind of victims because they're dumb enough.
to not think about it.
They're dumb enough to say something on a hot mic. She's not dumb enough to even go anywhere near this documentary.
Yeah, or let either of her other sons that she has full control over have anything to do with it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sucks, but it kind of highlights the dynamic of the family a little
Yeah.
bit. But yeah.
And-
so the son says, you know, he clearly admits to throwing Natalia
Dude,
down
he
those
says,
stairs.
when
dude.
we all did. So it's like, did like they all take turns whipping this?
How much was the dad involved? That's what I bet.
And like
I'm
he
dying
always acts
to
like
know.
he's not, but I swear, dude, he had.
I'm
to.
dying to know.
But she doesn't seem like he's involved when they. Well, we'll get into
yeah,
that.
we'll talk about it for sure.
But essentially, this is her first apartment is a little short lived, right? Because there's some weird stuff that happens, and she's she's essentially bothering a lot of the people that live in the apartment complex, right?
Yeah.
You hear from like the people that live in the house across the street that said she would just like show up and talk to them. And, you know, the old lady who lived directly across the street, who we both say we don't really know if we believe everything she has to say or not.
For sure.
But she was like a nuisance, I think, to them. But at the end of the day, like, if she's 8 years old, dude, like, she's desperate for attention or contact with a human.
No, yeah.
You know? And then there's that whole issue where they accuse her of sexually assaulting that boy outside.
Yeah.
Who's like 10. Right?
Yeah.
And she says that didn't happen. But I'm going to be real. Like, I think throughout the documentary, we see that she was definitely sexually mistreated in that Ukrainian situation.
And if I'm going to be kind and assume she's not kind, I'm sure all the evidence kind of points in this direction, but if I'm going to assume she's an 8-year-old and she's playing around with a 10-year-old, and most of her life the past couple of months has been hanging around with these people who live in these apartments, in these low-income apartments, like, and she's living by her fucking self, bro.
Yeah.
And she's being exposed to whatever's going on. She's literally 8. She's barely retaining what's going on. And then she's playing with somebody her age finally, maybe just doing something she learned from an adult, that some traumatic experience. She actually explains a couple of, we might have missed it in the last episode because we were skipping around a little bit.
Yeah, when it was like 3 o'clock in the morning.
At one point, she talks about how a guy, and I think we might have skipped over this, but there was a guy who at that second apartment, or maybe that first, I think it was the first apartment, who he was like an old man, and the old lady was talking about him, and he like the old lady who initially was like, oh, Natalia was she was like the
one we don't know if we
whistleblower.
trust or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But she even admitted, straight up admitted that like this guy used to walk around, an older man used to walk around naked around the apartment complex and like be like a straight up streaker pervert.
Yeah.
And that he invited her in one time, or like she was like around knocking on doors because she's
trying
8
to hang
years
out
old.
with somebody and she's 8.
She's 8 years old in an apartment, not knowing the etiquette of what to do.
Yep.
And then goes into this dude's apartment and he's got like porn on the TV. And
So
you
I
remember this.
seeing that, and he's like,
So
we
it's
should
like,
turn that off. And he was like,
so
no,
if
you
that-
can watch it. It's
So
cool.
even if that experience happened first, and then she's
It
out playing
stunts
with somebody
what
her
you think
age,
playing is.
and then she go and engages in some, it's like that's not fair to judge. Like if the re-aging is true and it's not legit, and she's not 22, like that.
Yeah.
That drives me nuts because it's like you're driving a kid to deal with really fucking adult situations.
Yeah. And we also need to talk about the fact that she told the couple that lived across the street that she tried to kill the family, like the Michael and Christine.
Right.
But according to her, Christine told her to say those things. So you have to, like, when you're 8, you do what your parents tell you, but like at the same time, would you tell them that? Because that was a big thing. Michael and Christine originally tried to get her out of the house by saying she was just unsafe. Right? Not that she was older, but that like she was threatening to hurt them and their kids.
Yeah.
Hiding knives.
Well, that was when the orphan thing kind of played in. They said that she saw the orphan in 2012 when it came out. 2012 when it came out. I guess that makes sense in the timeline. And you go, that's, that inspired her, and she was sloppy. She kind of based it too close on what she saw in the movie. She realized too many people saw the movie and switched up the story when she realized that the insurance stuff happened, the dependent stuff kicked in, like a lot of this stuff, these roadblocks, we'll call them, keep coming up for her. God, these roadblocks of adopting a child and having to be responsible for them in some degree.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Like, God forbid you have to fucking man up and
I mean, she was presenting as
kid.
mom of the year. This is the problem with the documentary is I feel like there's a narrative being presented a little bit where they're talking about her and she's like, she adopted Natalia because she wanted to receive even more praise as a mom.
Yeah.
For being
because
for adopting
she already got
somebody.
all the praise from having like the super genius kid.
Yeah,
Right?
right. And then you have this, and then you adopt this disabled person in order to help them out. Now that you've gotten some money and you can do that type of thing, how did she think that she could convince anybody? I mean, she did convince a lot of people.
She convinced the fucking Supreme Court.
And she convinced Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon.
She convinced Joe Rogan.
The two most important guys
I
in
wonder
media.
if they should get together and be like, we know you lied to us.
They should have Natalia on.
They should have Natalia on now.
Yeah,
that would
they
be
should
fucking sick.
They should make her shotgun beers with Shane Gillis.
They should just put Natalia in a bunch of shrooms
Yeah,
and make
dude.
her hang out
They
with
should
like
put her
Ari
on Protect
Shaffir.
Our Parks. Christ.
Protect Our Parks featuring Natalia or Killing Chapel. over
Yeah,
here.
Chapel's loving it. I love it.
So essentially, because of all the stuff we talked about here, she gets kicked out of that first apartment, right?
Boom.
Boom. And so in 2013, they moved Natalia to an apartment in Lafayette, Indiana, which it's like, why would you move her that far away from you guys in the first place when she obviously still needs assistance?
Yeah, she needs a lot of help, dude.
Yeah.
And let's get into the details on this apartment real quick.
Okay. So first of all, this apartment's on the second fucking floor.
No kidding.
It's a second story apartment. Like her front door's on the second story.
Now, has she gotten the surgeries yet and stuff?
She got all the surgeries, but she didn't have like the help assist.
So you gotta think now she's a big investment.
Yeah, now she's a big old
Now
investment.
she's a money sink.
Yeah, and it's like a boat, you know? Like you buy it and it's cool, but you just keep sinking money into that thing and
Yeah.
eventually it's got to fucking go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So what do they do when they get her in this 2-story apartment?
What did they do?
They moved to fucking Canada, bro.
We're out.
We're out.
Yeah, we're out. They left Michael
good.
behind.
Yeah, I mean, initially,
Yeah.
right? Michael was there initially, and the plan was for him to move up there eventually once he got whatever he needed to get done.
Right.
He never really goes into like that, but I think it was probably just due to their incoming divorce, right? Which, like, newsflash, they get divorced next year. Or
Yeah,
they
they
start
get
their divorce
divorced.
in 2014.
Yeah.
But-
Things start falling apart for poor old Michael.
Yeah.
Poor old Michael.
And just like Natalia's always done in her new place, right? It's not like she can drive a car, so she walks everywhere with these fucked up feet, dude, out of her 2-story apartment
Yeah.
every day.
Every day.
Imagine how many times she ate shit. Like, I know that's fucked up to think about.
No, it is fucked up
But
to think
imagine
about, but
how
at
many
least it's
times
not
she
her
ate
fucking
shit.
brothers throwing her down the fucking stairs. I
Yeah,
guess.
it was probably easier. There was less
less
impact
force.
coming from the back end.
Yeah, less physics involved in that fucking fall, I guess. I don't know. Jesus Christ,
She
dude.
just fell and it was like no pressure. It was like whatever.
Yeah, it was like
She
that's
bounced
easy.
right back
That's
up.
called falling on easy mode for her.
That's like when an NFL running back falls over. He's like, oh, it was nothing.
Yeah,
I didn't
I
even
mean-
get hit by Ray Lewis first.
Yeah, you punt her across the room, it's like a whole other level.
Dude, they just picked her up and threw her across the room.
Yeah, wasn't there a tweet about like Josh Allen throwing her to
I tell you that,
to
Josh
Stephon
Allen
Diggs?
whipping Natalia Grace over to Stephon Diggs for a 70-yard touchdown.
He could.
He could if he needed to.
Yeah.
It might get picked though.
Yeah. It's a 50-50. It's fine.
But essentially, she's just walking around and she has no supervision, right? So she ends up meeting this family who it's a man and a woman, Antoine and Cynthia Moss, right?
Is it Moss? Is it Man?
Mans. Sorry.
Mans.
Mans.
The
My fault.
Mans.
Antoine and Cynthia Mans. And they have
Mans.
like 135 kids that they adopted.
Give
like
or take.
the house looks
something
like a daycare.
similar to that, yeah.
Every single shot in their house looks like a fucking daycare.
There's so many kids, and isn't it something? There's a church involved or something to that effect.
Oh yeah. There's like, well, they're trying to make a church and he's a preacher.
Right.
Right. That's the big thing. Like
That's
he's
right.
a preacher and he's a holy man.
Yep.
And it's like their duty to foster and adopt all these kids.
Yep.
And they live like 6 houses down from this house that Natalia lives in, which is the second story because it's like a house where they've broken it up into like 5 apartments.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
I forgot about.
It's like a house they broke up into.
like a Hey Arnold.
Exactly. Or like, you know, we had friends that lived in those ones in our hometown where it was like a giant like 3,000 square foot house, but then it was broken into like 5 apartments.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. True.
And so they lived right down the street and they started to see her walking up and down the street, right? And they were like, why does this girl who's obviously a 10-year-old child, because now it's 2 years later, right? So she's 10.
Oh yeah.
Always by herself walking down the street with dwarfism and fucked up feet.
Yeah, it doesn't look right.
It doesn't look
It
good.
doesn't look right. It doesn't look good.
And you know she's just eating shit in front of their house.
And they also talk about how this neighborhood is so much fucking worse.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is gross here. It's like falling apart. There's a lot of crime around, and it's like she's like.
They go back, and while they're there, like just doing a sit around, they
Wait,
get gunshots.
Can we
dude.
talk? Can we talk about this scene for a minute?
The
Because
gunshots were definitely fake.
there's no way in fucking hell that these fucking gunshots weren't just edited into that.
They
The acting
sound
was
so
bad.
edited in.
The acting was bad. If you were actually hearing gunshots, wouldn't you fucking run? I don't know.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Watch that scene.
That scene, if you go back and watch it, it's very suspect.
And if you start thinking that way about this documentary, you start noticing more things like that, and you go, like, how much of the documentary can you trust? Which is why you're listening to the CNC podcast.
It's kind of like the second season gets a little more gotcha.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and now like with the ending, which we'll get into at the end, it's very gotcha, right? It's becoming
so
like
gotcha.
reality TV.
I think there's something really sick about the way they handle the a lot of this. Well, not just that, but like the way they handle the slow burn of disclosure of this documentary. They are a part of the reason why the narrative has been so pro Barnett for so long.
Yeah, because the whole
this
first
season one extends their narrative.
The first season was Michael Barnett is right.
Yeah.
And then the second season was, holy shit, Natalia Grace was right the whole time and we fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally what it is.
You know, and they don't own that at any point in the documentary. They don't like say anything about it. And a lot of documentaries act like they're super impartial all the time.
Yup.
And I think people like that are sick in the head.
Yes.
You see all this fucked up shit going on in front of you and you can't present it the way it is. You have to like play both sides. It's like the news. You're like, no, clearly one thing is fucked up, and we could just say it's fucked up.
And we could just say it's
even
why
if
are we
it's
being
like
shady
opinionated
and like
or whatever.
Yeah.
If you see something fucked up, say it, and then let it sit and let people decide. You know, people will decide if it's fucked up or not. I think most people now look at the Natalia Grace thing and would say it's pretty fucked up that it happened the way it did.
The whole thing was, I had the pleasure of watching it back to back, right? And the whole first season, I was like, yo, Michael's crazy, but I believe him.
Yeah.
And then the second season comes out, and I was like, that's what happened to everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody was believing Michael and Christina, and they were just lying. And it's like they lied so much they made themselves believe it. Like they could probably pass a fucking polygraph because they believe it on the inside now.
And that's the problem is like polygraphs aren't necessarily super effective.
No, if you
That's
believe the
because-
lie on the inside and you're a sociopath, you will pass that fucking polygraph.
And the thing they don't say is that I don't think it's just sociopaths that can lie like that. I think anybody's capable of that. I think anybody is capable of concocting a narrative in their head and convincing themselves that it's true enough.
Okay.
I don't.
Interesting philosophy.
I do. I think
in.
everybody's capable of it. You know, whatever. I'm admitting to being a good liar, but I just think
I'm not a sociopath. Brandon, the sociopath.
I keep saying I don't tip on the weekly show.
I know, dude. People are gonna be like, this sociopath who doesn't tip and loves Donald Trump, dude.
That's what I said on the pod. I said I don't like to clarify bits, but sometimes I gotta say,
hey, these are bits.
But I just think, yeah, I don't know, dude. I think people are just crazy. I think I think most people see the situation, they know what they're looking at, and I think Christine, if you're comparing Christine to Michael, say,
yeah,
sociopath versus lost soul,
like complete idiot,
yeah,
in my
bad
opinion.
liar,
just like.
And was willing to put himself on camera and lie poorly. That's a fool. That's a fool.
4 times over. He couldn't stop coming in and making up a new story
An
every year.
absolute fool and a jester. And if he doesn't think that isn't going to bite his ass in court at some point in the future, he's wrong. He's absolutely out of his mind.
He's lost his mind.
He comes dressing like Fred Durst.
Yes.
We'll talk about this.
Oh my God. So
it's good.
Yeah. So in 2014, Michael never makes it to Canada, right? I know we alluded to this, but he files for divorce, and Christina and him are divorced by 2019.
For sure.
And that's when he starts this whole, like, Christina is evil. I don't even call her Christina. I just call her evil. Oh, my God. That shit made me want to throw up on the fucking floor, and it wasn't because I ate, like, 20 pounds of sushi and alcohol.
Oh, we were full of food.
It wasn't even that.
A lot of
it was
calamari and sushi. But, yeah, he's again, it's the theatrics. There are moments where he's not being theatrical in those interviews, and it's for like a split second or whatever. And obviously those interviews are edited and chopped and whatever to make it seem more dramatic, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's, for the most part, I'd say 75% of what he says is just rehearsed.
Dude, he sits there in the mirror every day before he goes in there, and he fakes the crying and the story, and he's like, that was good.
Yeah.
You can just fucking tell it's so rehearsed.
He's a pathetic guy. He really is just a pathetic guy. But he's not the scary one to me.
No, he's just like, okay. You've seen Rick and Morty, right?
Yeah.
Like the parents of Morty.
Yeah.
I can't remember the dad's name, but
Jerry. I think.
Jerry. You remember the episode where they like see Jerry's true self and he's like that little fat sniveling worm?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about Michael.
That's really
And Christina's
good.
like the big fucking monster that was controlling him. That was the mother.
Yeah. 100%.
That's how I see it. Like he's just a sniveling worm that would do anything. anyone told him in the moment to avoid conflict.
Do you think Justin Roiland's going to beat the allegations? What do you think?
Dude, the show's moved on.
Yeah, but maybe he does like a Rick and Morty, like
Light?
on another channel.
I know I don't draw it, but I voice it, so just close your eyes and listen to this.
It's insane.
So even though they get divorced in 2018, and they think that's the end of Christina and Michael, right?
Right.
And at this point, I also want to mention that over this time, Natalia no longer lives by herself. She's actually moved in with the Mans, right?
Yeah,
she's become one of their kids during this time.
Yep.
She's in. She hangs out with the kids.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, they paint it as like a 100% positive experience.
For sure.
Right? She is helping out. She's awesome. She's the missing piece to their family. They love having her there.
Yep.
Right? And she's there for like 10 or 12 years by the time it's all said or done.
Yeah.
But what happens is in 2019, so 1 year after the divorce, the Barnetts face criminal charges for child abuse. The charges were split on the guidelines of being a child or an adult, depending on the disability. So they knew they wanted to charge them with either child abuse or abuse of a handicapped individual that they were dependent for.
Yeah.
Either way, they wanted to get them on either.
Let's go. Send them the book.
Yeah.
Lay the book on them.
We're going to figure out how old this bitch is, and then we're going to give you one of these two opportunities.
And you're going to get slapped either way.
Yep. And this really kind of split them even more, right? This is where at some point the oldest son moves in with Michael while this is happening, because it literally fractures the kids, I feel like, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really know why he moved out of his mom's house and moved back from Canada to America with Michael.
Yeah.
But the other two kids not only never move back, but never speak to Michael again to this day.
Which is insane because it makes me wonder what she said to them that he did. I mean, I remember multiple times in the documentary, he even admits to the fact that he told Christine he was going to kill her multiple times.
Yes. He said it.
He said it.
Because he was like, I had to defend myself.
Yeah, he plays it up in a way that tries to make people sympathetic. But, dude, you can't make me sympathetic to you in a way. I couldn't say that to somebody,
Anybody.
Yeah.
I just don't have that in me.
That's not, to me, something I don't find that impressive or, like, even worthy of, like, mentioning. If it's something that you think is going to garner you sympathy, you're out of your mind, dude.
No. And they essentially fight these charges for like 3 years separately, right?
Yeah.
Because they're divorced, so now the law's going after both of them separately. And she was never legally re-aged again. So the only opportunity to charge them came from the accusations of, abandoning a dependent with a disability.
Which hopefully comes with a big slap on the wrist as well. I mean, it sucks that that's even like somewhat of a demotion in a way. It's like crazy to me. It's like what?
Well, you'd be surprised, but the court ruled that Natalia's age could not be considered whatsoever. And they couldn't even explain how old she was in the trial.
Which is interesting because the reason Michael gets up and leaves in interviews because they start mentioning the re-aging thing, or maybe it's not why he gets up and leaves, but the second time they get together, he strictly almost cuts off the interview again about this.
Because of that exclusively.
Yeah, because of they've fought hard in court to make sure that it couldn't get it got thrown out.
Like,
and that they
we
couldn't
said
use
we
it.
couldn't talk about this.
Yeah,
and they fought 2-3 years to
and
get this kicked
anything
out.
he says implicates him in that old court and could put him in hot water, I assume.
Yep. So the prosecutors do decide to continue on the neglect of her disability charges, right? And that was in February of 2022. And that's kind of as far as you get in the first season, right? Now it was like early 2022. Now the second season just came out, which really passes through from then until late 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, modern times.
Almost like 3 months ago.
Yep.
Right?
Very recently.
And so it starts off, it skips from February of 2022 to October of 2022, where Michael's trial begins.
Yep.
And his attorney is painting Natalia as an adult.
For sure.
Because he knows they can't use the age
dude.
thing.
That guy,
Dude,
he's
got
a
his
savage.
shit. He is the ideal lawyer.
I mean,
like, if I ever get in trouble,
he's going to bat.
I'm calling him.
He's going to bat.
You know he costs a fucking fortune.
Well, what's crazy is he knows they suck. He seems like a guy who's
Doesn't
like
care.
pretty normal. Like aside from the fact that he's defending them so hard, but it's his job. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he would do it on a normal day, maybe not, but like he gets paid the big bucks, so he's gonna do it.
But he's been doing it for like
right.
do you think that guy's lawyer for like a decade?
He's gonna do it right, and that's
Yeah.
the other thing, right? He has a personal relationship with the guy, so it's like there's gonna be that bond, a little bit of camaraderie more so. He's gonna know his personality more and know how to manipulate him to do the things that he needs him to do in order to not get himself in more trouble, which I'd say he kind of did a bad job on in a way. Because
without a doubt.
And it's honestly probably not his fault. He probably is a good enough lawyer to convince most people. But this dude, I'm telling you, Michael is so fucked up. He sucks so bad as a guy.
And he's just impossible to represent. Like, I got to give him kudos for representing him for a decade.
Exactly. Yeah. He is a tough client. Dude.
Yeah, dude. He's an impossible client
for
to be
sure.
around. And so the big thing is legally at the beginning of the trial, it stated that she was 24 when they left her in Lafayette. And that's what the court's going to see. That's what the prosecution's going to see. That's what everyone's going to see.
Yep.
Right? She's 24 years old. Natalia wanted to live with the Barnetts as a family. Michael's attorney claims she wanted nothing to do with them. This is where he reiterates the stories that Natalia was trying to kill the family at 8 years old. 9 years old, that she was hiding kitchen knives in her bedroom, that she was standing at the edge of their bed at the middle of the night.
Which gets kind of painted in a different narrative when everybody gets caught up, talking about how they kick her down the stairs every day.
Yeah,
and
dude,
shit.
it's a little crazier when you find out that he fucking kicked her down the stairs.
Maybe keeping a knife under your bed makes a little more sense.
Maybe
when you realize they're beating the fuck out of you every day.
Dude, if they're going to National Lampoon throw you down the stairs in the middle of the night, you might need some protection.
Yeah, you might stand at the foot of their bed and scare them one night. Fuck you.
Thanks.
Right?
So Michael's attorney, they show videos of her walking to the store and down the street and claim she was an able-bodied adult. Which, like, I've seen videos of her walking down the store into the street.
The show is videos of her walking down the store to the store.
It's 40% of her walking around fucking town. Like,
just trying to get around.
Hitting that jig, you
really
know?
proving that point here.
Yeah,
that shit's not easy for her to get around, dude.
She is burning calories.
She's working.
Dude, it's a whole dip and thrust thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's...
And your fucking feet aren't even feet.
No, dude, they're not. They're like remade feet. They're like doctors decided what the image of a foot was.
We're going to make this kind of make sense for you.
Absolutely. And they said she was an able-bodied adult, right? Which I think is crazy.
Everybody's on drugs at this point.
Yeah. So Natalia testified she didn't have the skills to live independently, right? We saw she can't reach shit. Like, she's literally 2.5 feet tall.
She even at one point is like standing at the sink trying to prove that she can barely hold the knife.
Yeah, dude.
Because her
Like,
hands
how
don't
could I
close
get
right.
a knife from a knife block when it's that high up?
When they make her swear on the Bible in court, like she can't even keep her hand. It's like she's got the Spock hand going. Like she has no full control.
Dude, I know it's fucked up, but when they ask her to do solemnly swear and she puts this shit up,
she puts up.
It fucked my world up, bro.
Dude, she puts up the Spock hand. She looks directly at the guy. And she said, what, it live long and prosper? What the fuck did they say?
Live long and prosper. I don't know. I've never been to court.
No, I'm saying that Star Trek. I don't fucking know.
I thought you meant what do they say on the fucking
They should
Bible.
make court more like Star Trek, actually.
I would be more interested.
Yeah. Yeah.
I might get more tickets.
That'd be kind of sick.
So, obviously, we saw this. She couldn't reach the appliances, just like we were saying. And they had 2 hours of deliberation, which we know that's not shit in a trial.
That's nothing.
And they came back and found not guilty on all 3 counts of neglect and conspiracy to commit neglect of a dependent on Christina and Michael.
I mean, that's
home free, baby.
A huge failure.
They threw this bitch down the stairs. They sprayed her with pepper spray.
I mean, they
put
tortured
her
her
ass in 2 different apartments. This is what we were talking about last night, right? The first apartment, it was okay. And then she fucked up, and they were like, let's make it harder for her.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they were literally...
And we're not even talking about her origin story as one of the little people forced by Epstein to clean up, to do for Stephen Hawking, to do the math problems on the whiteboard.
She was doing the math problems.
We didn't even talk about how traumatic that must be, dude.
Dude, she had... That's why she liked her oldest brother the most. He reminded her of Stephen Hawking.
It's got to be horrible after all that to then go to America to the Barnetts thinking I got a nice life looking ahead of me. You know, I got to escape to Epstein Island. I escaped Stephen Hawking. I escaped it all.
Dude, like literally escaped everything just to be
I escaped the war.
Not old enough to live in the home you're provided with.
Yeah.
Think about that.
And then you face this evil American family and you realize it's so much worse. Bring me back to the war-torn Eastern Bloc.
Dude, at
please.
least they're like, they didn't throw me down the fucking stairs or accuse me of being 25.
Well, they did sell her to Epstein, so.
Yeah.
You know.
What do you expect?
The Curious Case of Natalia Hawking. Check it out, MNB Podcast.
Pretty sure that's one of our episodes, right?
It's
It's like
our
8.
poorly
Episode
rated,
8.
our most poorly rated episode on Google reviews.
Google said that episode is in bad taste.
Yeah, give us more negative reviews.
So I want to kind of start to wrap here with the idea of where the podcast ends. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, the documentary.
I keep saying
we're so
podcast.
deep in a podcast
I'm such
right
a
now.
fucking idiot,
we're so
dude.
immersed in podcasting. We also have in-ear monitors for the first time. So
I know, so I can hear
in-ear
myself.
monitoring.
And I feel like, and I have cameras, so I'm like, oh my God, what does this look like?
Yeah. It's a whole new world, baby.
A whole new
If you're ready for it.
world.
That's pretty nice.
A shining chimney point.
We're going to have Chapel auto-tune that in
Dude, I'm
post.
gonna sound like the goat. Anyways, the end of the thing is kind of showing how the Mans, who are painted as this like incredible family that supported her, right, for the last 10 years, they help her in these interviews that she does for the second season with Michael.
Yeah.
Right? Where she gets Michael to come back, and the first time he runs away because he has a showdown with her new dad. What's his name again? The man's husband.
I forget.
Antoine.
Antoine Mans.
Antoine and Michael get into it.
They do.
Right?
Yeah, they duke it out super hard, actually.
And Michael goes, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And he rips off his microphone. He runs in his little sports car. And then Antoine goes out and like punches his car, which was fucking sick.
He does go out and big dog him a little bit.
I don't think Antoine's in the second interview.
I
don't think he was there.
I think that was a stipulation.
I think like Michael was like, Antoine is scary.
Yeah,
No
I think
more
it's
Antoine.
just yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into that, but yeah, it was a pretty volatile situation. I think they kind of knew that going into it with the documentary. They knew having these guys going head to head
was going to be crazy. And they wanted it the first time.
Remember how long that scene was where he's like hyping her up to walk into the apartment?
Dude, they like
and you
pray
find
outside
out,
like it's a football game.
but they pan and Michael's sitting right there and the door's been open the whole time
he
and
can
he's
hear
hearing the
thing.
whole
and
thing.
Antoine's like, that dude a bitch. He ain't got nothing on
Yeah,
you.
it's fun.
You gonna beat him.
He's
You're
gonna-
gonna win. You're gonna get all the answers you want.
Don't forget he doesn't swear.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
a man
he
of
did
God.
not say bitch. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's
he,
a man of
He
God.
would never
He
swear.
honestly doesn't swear. He got all mad that
I think Michael said like
was
Jesus
swearing.
Christ or
Yeah,
something.
he got
and,
mad.
and Michael goes, I can't do it. I just swear if I'm gonna say something.
I think if you're principled about it, it's hard as fuck. Now that I'm older, like back in the day, I would have been like, fuck you.
We had an English teacher, and he never swore, and he said that like, if you use it too much, it gets watered down, right?
Yeah. Well, laying it out when you really
It's like
that's
it's
true.
like the explanation.
When you
mark
have a
of
guy you
sentence
never
when
he's soft
and
with his
he
words
says
most of the
it,
time, and then
yeah.
you lay it down, you're like, oh.
When they're like, get that fucking thing, and you haven't heard him swear in like 3 years, you know they mean that shit.
It gets
you know?
serious.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Unlike for us, where we're like, hey, get that fucking shit, and we're dicking around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But we see the Mans, right? And they
Yeah.
seem like this very supportive family.
Right? They
do.
I would even go as far as to say they're much better than the Barnetts.
Oh yeah, I mean it's night and day.
Yeah.
From what we've seen so far.
From what we can tell.
Yeah. But then near the end, we hear a phone call.
This is also like to describe this before.
Oh wait, before we get into that, don't forget, like the last 30 minutes of the documentary is her getting adopted.
Correct.
Right.
So
They're
she's
her
legal
legal parents.
guardians.
She is now a man's, right?
Yeah.
She is one of their children.
The
one
paperwork
of their 400 children.
Is in.
It's in. And then they're like, okay, she's happy.
Yep.
She's going to live with them. She's got a nice house. She's confronted everything she needs to confront.
Mm-hmm.
She's forgiven Michael, right? Because she did forgive Michael.
She did forgive Michael. She prayed with him.
Yep. And
It's
they
actually a
prayed.
pretty powerful moment in the documentary.
It is.
It's one of
It
the more
is.
genuine, in my opinion, moments of the documentary because it is a time where he does need Grace to be forgiven in that moment. He fucked up and everybody knows he fucked up. He knows even if she's whatever, he was the legal guardian. He knows that he should have played a bigger
And you
role in
feel like he
helping
does
out.
feel some
I know he
kind
feels
of
a bit
weight.
of weight
You know?
and
Yeah.
maybe a regret, which is
Absolutely.
why he has this nagging sense to keep coming back and being he's
and
like
keeping a
punishing.
part of this. He's like, he wants to finish it just as much as she does
I
at the
think
end
it's
of the
his
day.
way of punishing himself without having to admit guilt. Is
I
putting
like that.
himself through this fucking arduous process of looking like a fool to everybody on HBO. Like
I
it's
like
like he just can't. He's not strong enough to admit.
Yeah, to admit it.
Yeah,
I like that.
that's just my read.
I like that read a lot. I'm very skeptical of Michael. I can't tell if he does have growth or if he just is continuing to manipulate Natalia.
Yeah.
You know, into just being not mean in the moment.
Yeah.
Because when people get mean to him, he like cries and runs out the room into his little Mazda sports car.
He really does.
Every time.
Every time.
It's like right out of a cartoon. It's like Roger from American Dad.
It's like they have a camera out there waiting for him to leave.
Dude, they know he's gonna leave. You know they had like 6 dudes out there at the second interview.
Just in case he busts
That's why they
out,
had those sweet footage when he did leave calmly at the end.
I'm saying, they're like, this
They
guy's a
were like,
bitch.
okay.
Put people outside.
Okay, we got put him outside. Just put him outside.
3 dudes outside with a GoPro. Just in
smoke.
case.
Just wait. It'll be like an hour.
Yeah.
It could be anywhere from the next 5 minutes to
Just be ready
2
for him
hours.
to bust out at any time.
Well,
Pause.
fast forward on that bus.
No, dude.
No, dude. You're scared of the bus?
I have to pause myself on that one. I didn't realize.
So near the end, right, it's like, okay, Natalia's living there. Things are good, right? Things are all good.
They are.
And we get a phone call to the producers at the end.
This
which
is like
a little added
2
script.
minutes before the fucking
Yeah, like
entire
literally 2
documentary
minutes. The screen
ends.
goes black, and they're like, but we just got a phone call. And it's Antoine. And they only show
And
Antoine's
the
voice.
mom's on it, too.
Is the mom on it too?
Mom's on it, too.
Okay. They're on there, and Antoine's like, she's a liar. She's a manipulator.
This isn't the first time she's done things, but this is by far the worst
and
thing
we've like
she's
forgiven
done.
her for things she's done in the past. And we did hear in there from one of the kids, like one of the 200 kids in Antoine's house,
That when she was a baby.
when she was a baby, that Natalia beat her up. But she said she didn't know any better.
Because Natalia at the time would have been 10.
Which makes you think, like, if she was getting beat up, maybe she's just like, that's what older siblings do. But at the same time, it's scary to hear.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it builds, and it was used in a situation to kind of build while the lawyer was explaining a case against
Yes.
Natalia. Again, another part of the documentary I don't appreciate, because instead of providing you this information in a way that's sort of non-biased, they packed that in while that lawyer was laying it thick and debuted that information for the first time
500%.
while they were laying it on thick on Natalia, which is then going to make you think worse of Natalia in that moment.
Yes.
Even though what you just said makes total sense. She's
like
10
you're
years
supporting
old.
her, but you make it
she
sound like
just
shit.
got out of this fucked up, like, abusive household, and, you know, yeah, she might not have known better. She maybe was still lashing out and being a 10-year-old idiot who was just put through the fucking ringer or something.
But at the end of the day, she's 10.
But yeah, and,
Like, she's 10.
and you have to also, you know, it's no excuse, because if a 10-year-old beats up a baby and something bad happens, it's a tragedy and something could have been done to prevent it, I'm sure, and people are going to think that way. So I don't want to excuse shit like that, but, like, you know, there's a way that this documentary presents information that I just take a lot of issue with sometimes.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Because after they give this phone call, they're like, they put a black screen up and they say something along the lines of, this is not the end of the Natalia Grace story.
Tune in.
Tune in
Tune
for
in next
season
week.
3. And it's like, is this a documentary or is this gotcha journalism?
Yeah, are they creating the narrative now?
Like, the first season, it's like they fucked up and now they're trying to make it like an A&E show.
The problem is
It's like 600-pound life, you know?
I feel like a lot of the time the problem with these documentaries is when they catch up.
Yep. Because then they're out of story to tell.
Not only are they more popular because then there may be 2 seasons in or something like that, and now they're caught up to real time, but now there's a vested interest in leaking information to these documentaries.
Which makes sense because you and I are both here today like, well, what the fuck is going on? Because we don't want to wait. So
Exactly.
you and I spent like an hour and a half this morning looking into like, where is she now? And
well, there is
get into that?
a little bit. We didn't talk about it, so
The TikTok stuff?
well, whatever's going on with apparently there was also a Facebook post.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's from Christine herself.
Yeah.
So the whole thing.
Which is wild.
Which is
because she's been
unhinged.
radio silent this entire time.
For like 3.5 years while season 1 happened, production of season 2 happened. And if we're going to be real, both seasons, they shit on Christine the whole time.
And I also don't want to skip over the whole thing with the family like disavowing her or whatever, because I also saw that maybe they might be a little bit they might be on better terms now because there was some TikTok posts that Natalia had made.
Oh,
where
yeah, like when Natalia
mans had
and
commented
Antoine
on
and
it
his wife.
in a positive way.
Yeah.
So maybe they had made some type of amends by now. Who knows?
We can hope, right?
I would like that.
But what I do kind of, the thing is,
We talked about that. What was Kelly was saying that there was that narrative going around on TikTok about the church.
well, yeah, he wants to make a church, and I'm not going to lie. Like, the whole thing kind of seemed money grabby.
Yeah.
Like, why legally adopt her now? Because she gets a disability check.
Interesting. Yeah, that's definitely.
Like, why legally adopt her 14 years into her living in your house? So just change her name on paper and lie. Like, it's just,
and they're running a tax-free operation with their church.
And all their
in
kids.
some type of way, right?
I feel like they're getting a ton of paychecks from each kid they adopt.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Monthly paychecks and just,
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think they're just kind of racking up any way they can to build this church that Antoine is dreaming of. And I think why he called was there may have been a big disconnect between where her disability money was going to be utilized.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But maybe they smoothed it over. But before we cut, I do want to say, I want to read Christine's Facebook post. I want to get back to
And this is my first time hearing this, so.
Cool. I did find this like an hour while you were showering earlier.
Yeah, while we were getting ready.
She posted this right after season 2 premiered on HBO. Okay, so like probably 3 weeks ago. And this got picked up by a news article. So
is this her personal Facebook?
This is her personal Facebook account. Okay. But someone screen capped it and sent it to a news
private
article.
And
some family member, some friend of a friend who saw it, comment,
For sure. It's hot news.
All right. Christine. Natalia was a very much loved and cared for member of my family. She was not abused by anyone in my family. Let's get straight to these allegations. Nobody ever took a belt to Natalia, and the allegations that she was beaten are just plain false. Any discipline of Natalia was very minimal and was not out of the bounds of normal parenting. If anything was overly permissive, as we all felt a tremendous amount of sympathy for Natalia and loved her while she lived with us. That's just the first part.
And then we kicked her out and put her in an apartment.
We loved every minute of living with her till we re-aged her.
Yeah, there's a lot of holes in this now.
Now, she goes on to say, living with Natalia did come with constant allegations about her treatment, which I believe was to lead people away from investigating her personal behaviors, which were extreme and usually of some sort of sexual or hurtful attacks towards other in nature. So the accusation of being abused are a way to deflect what she is actively doing to hurt other people. And as well as they say themselves, hurt people hurt people. She has alleged abuse by anyone who has had long-term contact with her, as well as neighbors, teachers. I've never heard of any of her neighbors or teachers being
accused of anything. This is starting to actually piss me off now.
And
I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Children that she claims were abusive to her. In my experience, they all were not abusing her. At the end of the day, understand, compassionate people have grace. Because I had that compassion myself.
This is
fucking
God.
Disgusting.
Like halfway through that, I kind of got chills because that's fucking insane.
That's a sociopath's Facebook post.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's no other way to put that.
I'm kind of floored by that, and I'm kind of floored that she's still taking this angle that like Natalia's some kind of like sick sex pervert, like this disabled girl.
She hurt everybody. She fucked everybody. She was a 10-year-old kid, dude.
Clear evidence with that guy in that band that we talked about that she's being set up to go on dates with like adults by her.
That she set up. Like he still had the fucking text messages.
He was talking about it, dude. It's like this is where I start to get fucking pissed because you're putting that's
gross.
Forget
right?
about putting somebody in a dangerous or abusive. That's sex trafficking. Then
110%.
What are you doing? Now you're Epstein. She went from Jeffrey Epstein to Jeffrey Epstein. What the fuck? What kind of luck is that, dude?
That's terrible luck, dude.
It's crazy.
Like maybe that's what happened. Maybe this woman was like a Epstein friend.
She looks like she could be.
Dude,
straight up.
The eyes
and what's up with that? What's up with that family's money and where's all that coming from? I don't know. So I'll say, what we know here is I just pulled an Aaron Rodgers on this family so hard. I was like,
they're
probably on the list.
They're on the Epstein flight list.
On the list, dude.
With Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel's on the list. Everybody's on the list.
So I don't know how to feel. I think at the end of the day, right, like Natalia, Michael, Christine, I think everybody's lying a little bit.
I'm
not gonna lie.
I think Natalia has a vested interest in burying the Barnetts.
Now,
and
absolutely.
I think she'll say anything and maybe embellish truths to get to that, to meet that end.
to ensure that they are done.
And I don't blame her. I don't blame
her. I don't blame her at this point. I'm here for it.
I would advise her not to, because I think what they've done is enough.
Yeah, they should just leave each other alone.
You don't need to even embellish it or do anything. Maybe she's not to. Who knows?
Yeah.
But my gut instinct says some things are, embellished to make them look worse, but what they did to her was bad enough to warrant like her freaking out about this. And like also trauma is gonna fuck you up on your memories. Yep. You're not gonna see things clearly. Like, and she's just trying to make it through. And I mean, trying to make it through under those circumstances it's tough as it is. It's tough.
You mean living by yourself at 10?
And disabled and like having to deal with all this pain all the time.
I couldn't live by myself at 10, able-bodied.
I mean, it's just gotta hurt.
Everything hurts, and then you got to go up the stairs to live and get in your own front door.
Yeah, it really sucks, dude. And it sucks if somebody like that could be mistreated. And I don't give a shit if she's even a bad person. It's like we gotta have more empathy for people. And if you're gonna adopt them and bring them into your home and mistreat people, like you're like the scum of the earth, man. Like I truly like this.
You truly are the scum of the earth.
Yeah, because it's like adoption's important now. There's a lot of stuff that happens, and there's not enough people adopting, and like people do it for nefarious reasons. People do it for like really fucked up reasons. So it's like. Yeah, it bums me out to think that people are out there abusing the system, and it's like more common than people who are out there even doing a good thing. Like it's just like a puppy mill to people in some ways. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree. It's just like you see it all the time. People like with those like 9 adopted kids, and they just collect the paychecks and nobody works. Yeah. It's a real scam since like the 90s.
I'm not going to lie, though. I'm going to watch season 3.
Oh, dude, that's what I was going to end with. I'm definitely 100% still going to watch season 3.
Well, now that we did this, we're going to have to watch season 3.
Yeah, because then it's going to be a bonus.
Yeah. So that's cool. I mean, I had a great time. The documentary is well made. I'll give them that.
I did enjoy the documentary. HBO knows what they're doing with a doc.
Sure. I hope that there's a good conclusion for everybody except for Christine and her,
I hope Christine takes it the worst. Yeah.
Michael, maybe a little bit more slaps on the wrist for Michael would probably be good too, to be honest with you. Just he needs a little reality check clearly.
And he's like married now. He's like remarried to this woman, and it's
you imagine that?
No.
I'm dead. Like, what's going on?
How do you do that? How do you do that?
I don't know, dude. But yeah, I mean, going over this really fucking was a trip. This is a crazy story from beginning to end, and we're not done. And I think it's I could have heard what I heard on Joe Rogan, Tim Dillon doing 7 minutes on this as a bit, and taken away from it what a lot of people took away from it if they didn't watch this documentary, which was the Barnett side of the story.
Yep.
And I think
which is what most people got until they saw season 2.
And the other thing is the documentary didn't present another side of the story until way later too. So the media plays this up. Natalia Grace gets lost in that. I mean, imagine going up against all of that. Imagine going up against that. Your narrative's gone. No matter what you say is going to be drowned out by millions of people who heard the other side of the story first. So
yeah, which is like a year's difference.
And I'm not, Joe Rogan's a comedy podcast. If you're getting your news from Joe Rogan, maybe try looking at where Joe Rogan gets his news. I don't know. He's not a
Hit
newsman.
Jamie up. See where Jamie gets his files from.
Yeah. Be more of a Jamie than a Joe if we're talking news. Is all I'm saying. But if you get into it, do a little article reading at times. Go through and make sure. But I don't know. In general, the correction always gets less retweets than the original.
We talk about that all the time.
Post.
No one goes back and reads the correction to the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
Nobody.
And they correct it months after.
Yeah, and they don't repost it when they correct it.
No.
They just silently correct it and leave it 20 links down.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's gaslighting at its finest.
I think this was one fucking great way to kick off CNC.
CNC. Welcome to CNC. Crime and Conspiracy. I'm excited to get into some alien stuff on this.
Yeah, which is what's going to come in our second episode. So y'all stay tuned. We'll be doing it in podcast format moving forward. We wanted to get the first one out in a podcast and a video, right? Use the Spotify, use the Apple Music, use the YouTube. Let's do it all. So I'd like to always say... Big thanks to my man over here, my boy, Brandon, as always.
Big thanks to Max.
And a big fucking thanks to Chapel over there in the corner.
Chapel really put
pleasure,
in work
boys.
today, setting up stuff and making this all look so beautiful, dude. It looks so cool. I'm so excited to see a final product
Same.
here.
I can't wait to see it.
My pleasure, boys.
Dude, no, it's our pleasure. Thank you. Fuck yeah, dude. CNC. Let's
Yeah,
go.
man. Let's cut it. All right. Deuces, everybody.
Deuces.